This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Bucks made a bevy of moves today that sent shockwaves around the NBA. Those moves, the signing of Indiana free agent center Myles Turner. It's a 4-year deal worth $107 million. The other move, the waiving of all-NBA guard Damian Lillard. They still owed him $113 million, but going to be able to spread that out over 5 years. He is expected to miss most, if not all, of the upcoming season after tearing his Achilles in the playoffs. As for Turner, he's coming off a run to Game 7 of the NBA Finals with Indiana and was expected to re-sign with them. Instead, he brings his nearly 16 points and 6.5 rebounds and 39% three-point shooting to a Bucks team that had a need at center following Brook Lopez's departure for the Clippers. But the Bucks weren't satisfied with that. To clear more room for the signing, they sent Pat Connaughton and 2 second-round picks to Charlotte for forward Vasilij Micic. He is likely to be bought out and return to Europe. Meanwhile, the team signed Orlando free agent wing Gary Harris and re-signed center Jericho. Both of those moves came after Milwaukee had agreed to new deals to keep Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and Taurean Prince yesterday, along with Sunday's re-signing of Bobby Portis.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Get insurance from a company who knows Wisconsin and cares about your community. You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer, but did you know they also offer competitive home and auto rates? Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more about products and discounts.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Wisconsin basketball program has its final piece of its roster. It was announced this afternoon that forward Elijah Gray had transferred in. He spent his first 2 seasons at Fordham and last year at Temple, where he averaged 9 points and 3.8 rebounds per game. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. And the Brewers got rained out in New York tonight. They'll play a doubleheader tomorrow. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, print.
I mean, a stunner today in the NBA. They have reached a 4-year, $107 million agreement with Indiana Pacers center Myles Turner. He was a free agent. They are picking him up in free agency. And in order to do so, they are waiving and stretching the $113 million on Damian Lillard's contract. This opportunity came out of nowhere for the Bucks. Myles Turner is the longest tenured Pacer, 10 years there. He wanted to remain in Indy, from my understanding. The Pacers made several offers that were below market value, from what I understand. And so John Horst, as well as Turner's agent, Austin Brown, they worked over the last 24 hours to figure out, is there a way, a creative way in a very scarce marketplace in right now salary cap around the league? Is there a way to bring Myles Turner to Milwaukee? And for the 3rd time in Giannis Antetokounmpo's Milwaukee tenure, back in 2020, John Horst goes out and gets Jrue Holiday. 2023, Damian Lillard. This one was more serious this summer of 2025 because Giannis Antetokounmpo essentially was never as close as he's been to potentially leaving Milwaukee, and they go out and get a franchise caliber starting center. Damian Lillard welcomed the release today, this change of scenery. He gets all $113 million now owed to him. He also is going to be able to, for the first time in his career, pick his next destination.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
It's a little audio from Shams Charania on ESPN earlier today. Just kind of a breakdown of a wild, 8 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, however many hours it's been since the news started breaking. The news that Myles Turner was signing with the Bucks, I think just after 10, Bill's show had just started. And then it was just, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, that we learned that Damian Lillard was being waived and stretched, which is basically they're cutting him. And this is something that I feel like maybe used to be more common in the NBA. It's not super common, but when you waive and stretch a player, you're basically cutting them. And you're saying, we're going to spread the salary that we'll pay to you. We'll spread it out over a little bit of a longer period of time. So kind of like deferring. It's something that's been done before. I can't think of a time the Bucks have done it. But basically when you hear waived and stretch or he's waived, they cut him and spread out his money. So that's what the Bucks did today. I expected them to do neither one of these things when I showed up to the studio today. So this is fun. This is entertaining. We have a lot to discuss. And the Bucks made a couple of moves last night that we can talk about as well. I think at this moment, more excited about the Bucks than I have been since they originally traded for Dame. and maybe opening night against the Sixers, right? 2 seasons ago, and he had like 40 and hit that big shot. It's like, oh, and from that moment on, the Dame era just never really reached the heights that we thought it might or hoped that it might. Obviously, injuries and trades, and there were lots of factors as to why the last 2 years didn't really go according to our hopes and dreams. But a big part of the failure is that Dame and Giannis just never really became this two-man machine that we thought. And now, even if Dame comes back from that Achilles injury and plays at a high level, even if he does that, it will be for another team and it will not be in Milwaukee. So enter the Myles Turner era of Milwaukee Bucks basketball. And it was kind of funny because Zach Heilprin, our sports director, his office is through this wall, but there's a window into the hallway, and then his office is on the other side, and then there's another window, and he insists on keeping the blinds shut. I will go in there and open them because there's an exterior window, so through 3 panes of glass, I can get a little sunlight here in the studio. Zach will always close it when he gets in, so I can't see him, but today, with every transaction that happened, whether it be Turner, and then Dame, and then they signed Gary Harris, and they might have even they traded Pat Connaughton today, and every time it happened, Zach would make a face over at me as to how frustrated he was because he had to keep changing the sports update. So yes, the media begins with me. Zach embodies that very well. Zach's like, these moves or whatever, I just want to stop having to change the sports update on the fly. So everyone say a prayer for our sports director, Zach Heilprin, today. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Glad that you're here. Justin Garcia, the Bucks Radio Network, is going to be here at the bottom of this hour at 4:30. He's a very high-ranking member of the Bucks organization. He's very tapped in and plugged in. I'm sure he heard murmurs of all these things weeks ago. And I look forward to getting his analysis and his breakdown. He'll help kind of put this in terms that us normal folk can understand, especially with salary and stretching and waiving and exceptions and the biannual and the taxpayer and the aprons and all that crap. So he'll be in it here in a half hour. And it's not crap. I would just prefer for him to explain those details efficiently so we can spend most of our time talking about the fun stuff, the basketball stuff, right? For our first segment tonight, I think I can best explain my feelings on all of this. I think I can give you my best analysis if we work chronologically going back to last night. Now, last night, we learned that the Bucks were re-signing Gary Trent Jr. and re-signing Taurean Prince. Not sexy moves, not anything that's going to have Bucks fans doing backflips because those guys were here last year, and last year's team exited in the first round. But I fist bumping is too strong. I was head nodding. I'm like, okay, these are moves that I like. Taurean Prince signed for 2 years, $7 million. In today's NBA, that's dirt cheap. Gary Trent Jr., who I thought was definitely one of the bright spots, maybe the only other bright spot other than Giannis in this last postseason run, re-signed for $7 million. That's good value. And for all the Bucks fans that I saw on Twitter last night and people saying, well, are they just running it back? So they've re-signed Bobby Portis, they've re-signed Taurean Prince, they've re-signed, Gary Trent Jr. Are they just running it back? Oh, okay, I understand there might not be a big appeal of running it back, but what's better, Bucks fans? Trying to figure out how to add to last year's team and make last year's team better, or trying to completely rebuild this team from the ground up? You know what I mean? Like, the goal is the Bucks don't have to rely on Taurean Prince. The goal is they don't have to rely on Gary Trent Jr. to score 30 a game, but I like this team a lot better with Taurean Prince and with Bobby Portis and with Gary Trent Jr., especially because the latter, especially the two guys that signed last night or re-signed, they're dirt cheap. They're not. It's like Gary Trent Jr. didn't sign for 3 years, $30 million. Taurean Prince didn't break the bank. These guys are on not necessarily minimum deals, but pretty darn close. So I was pleased with the movements of last night. I like this team a lot better with Bobby Portis, with Taurean Prince, and with Gary Trent Jr. And then this morning, we get news that they've signed Myles Turner to a big money deal. And I was very excited by that. I'm like, oh, okay, so Brook Lopez departs, but you replace him with a guy who's 8 years younger, can play it up a fast pace, right? He's not plodding. He's not slow. He's a center. So it's not like he's going to fly up and down the court at breakneck speed, but you saw the pace and the style with which he played with the Pacers last year. Like that's a big upgrade for me. Going from Brook Lopez to Myles Turner, he can block the shots, play around the rim. He can hit the threes. He can probably come outside and set screens for Giannis. He can cut, he can pop, he can do all the things that they need him to do. So I love this. And I love the idea of the Bucks a lot more with last year's team plus Myles Turner then I love last year's team and let's see and wait if Damian Lillard can come back. I certainly prefer the first option. Give me something new. Give me something younger. Give me something more athletic. Give me something different, right? Like that was a big shot in the arm. When that news broke during the first couple of minutes of Bill's show earlier today, I'm like, okay, I can get excited about this. I can feel enthusiastic about this in a way that I wouldn't have been able to feel about Damian Lillard. Even if I like Dame a lot, and even if maybe he was going to be able to come back towards the end of the year and give him something, like I'd way rather take this. I'd way rather take last year's team plus Myles Turner than last year's team plus Damian Lillard coming back maybe at some point. So there was some real excitement, some real jubilance, if you will, for me when we saw the Myles Turner trade earlier today. And then we got news that they're waiving Damian Lillard. And here's where I think my opinion and my feelings differed from many of the Bucks fans, at least that I saw on the internet, or, folks commenting on Bill's talk and text line or his live stream, which I'm watching every day during the show because I have the live stream open. So I see a lot of reaction, and I have Twitter open all day, and I saw a lot of this from Bucks fans like, oh, I don't know how to feel. Very similar to when the Packers signed Josh Jacobs and then, shortly thereafter released Aaron Jones. It's like, oh, now the Josh Jacobs signing seems kind of messed up. Like now the tuxedos seem kind of effed up, right? The Step Brothers quote. Well, now I don't know how to feel about Myles Turner. I saw a lot of Bucks fans who were like, oh, this is sad. I'm sick. I don't know what to think. Best of luck to you, Dame. I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. I don't feel bad about this at all. And the Bucks are going to have to pay him $20 million to not play basketball for the next couple of years. I don't care. It's not my money. Well, it's going to count against the cap. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. Damian Lillard's going to get all his money. He's going to get to go pick his next destination. We've got all this reporting throughout the day. It's like, Dame actually welcomed this. You heard that in the intro, Shams Charania. He actually likes this a lot. He now gets to go pick his next destination. He doesn't have to sign anywhere this year if he doesn't want to. He could just rehab. He could go live back in Portland. He could go live in Florida if he wants to eventually go with the Heat, which I kind of feel like maybe that's what's going to happen. He can be separate from a team. He does not have to sign any sort of commitment or contract. He can wait to see how his Achilles rehabs this year. If he doesn't want to sign and join a team until next year, he now has that option because the money's going to keep coming in. I think this is great for Damian Lillard. The sad part for Dame is that he blew his Achilles. That already happened. That already took place. That already bummed me out. I've already gone through the grieving process with that, which honestly was pretty brief because that Bucks team wasn't going anywhere with him anyways. And for all the Bucks, people that I've seen on the internet, it's like, oh man, what a what if. We'll never know. I know. That's not a what if for me. I watched plenty of games that featured Dame and Giannis, and it just didn't work the way that we wanted it to or the way that we hoped it would. When Dame first came to Milwaukee, I remember not just fans, but smart basketball people outside of the Bucks sphere, people who cover the league nationally, people who cover a big picture said, oh my God, this two-headed pick and roll monster, they'll be unstoppable. And it stood to reason, like it made sense. You know what I mean? Like Damian Lillard can have the ball at the top of the key. Giannis can come set a pick. What are you going to do with that? And it just never really worked out. Giannis and Dame's games never really added to each other's in a way that we hoped or the way that we thought or the way that many thought. And that's fine. And I know they weren't healthy for a lot of playoff games together, but folks, regular season basketball games are still basketball games. They're still played on a 94-foot court. They're still played against the same other NBA teams. Like, we had plenty of sample to know that it just wasn't going to work. So don't throw good money after bad. Move on, even if you got to eat a little money against the cap every year. I'll take this path. I'll take last year's team plus Myles Turner instead of last year's team and, well, let's hope Damian Lillard can come back. Because I let me tell you, I've done this sports radio thing long enough. I've gone through the yearly cycle long enough. I've been on the air since 2018. So I know how like the January to June, the June to October, the October to December, I've gone through the cycle enough to know how this works. Here's what would have happened. The Bucks would have been a fine team, maybe around the 5th seed, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. They would have been a playoff team at some level, assuming Giannis' health. And if Giannis isn't healthy, the whole thing's shot anyways. So if Giannis is healthy and the core of players that they brought back, if everyone's healthy, they would be somewhere in the playoff mix. Damian Lillard would come back. He might give them a little, but he wouldn't give them a ton. And then we'd go into the offseason saying, well, that really doesn't count. Day one of this next season is when Dame's really back. And then we'd start the next season, and Damian Lillard would take some time to get his feet under him. And we've seen this with Paul George. We've seen this with plenty of NBA players who have suffered catastrophic injuries. A broken leg, an ACL, an Achilles. The first year back is kind of the reestablishing year. So what would have happened is this year with Dame wouldn't have counted. We would have thrown that away. Next year with Dame probably wouldn't have counted. We mostly would have thrown that away. So we're at least one full season, probably a full season and some change away from actually being able to evaluate Dame and Giannis together again. And we already evaluated Dame and Giannis for 2 years and it didn't work at the level that it needed to work at. So why do I want to wait around for this season, for next season? By the way, at which point Dame will be, I think he turns 35 in 2 weeks. So then he'd be 36. He'd be 37 before we really have an honest to goodness a point where we can actually see what's going on. And at that point, it's done. It's cooked. Because even if Dame comes back the same player that he was the last few years, that wasn't good enough. And then it's done and it's over. And we sat around with our thumbs up our butts for 2 years, waiting and wishing and hoping for something that wasn't going to work out. So yeah, it's brutal to have $20 million against your cap every year. It's not my money. It's the Bucks owner's money. I know it counts against the cap. What, are you going to go out and sign Luka Doncic in free agency anyways? No. You going to trade for Steph Curry? No. I don't think Damian Lillard hitting their dead cap every year, hitting their cap for $20 million, I don't think it's going to preclude them from doing anything they would have been able to do anyways. I like this path. Now, I still don't think they're going to win a title. They're certainly not one of the first, second, or third favorites in the East, but I like this team's chances more. And look, folks, Giannis and Myles Turner can play together and be on the same court in a way that's not redundant. You know what I mean? If Giannis is handling the ball, Myles Turner can come set screens, he can set picks, he can pick and pop, he can catch and shoot. He can do all the things separate from Giannis. With Dame, what we learned over 2 years is if Giannis has the ball, then Damian Lillard is kind of useless. And if Damian Lillard has the ball, then large portions of the time, Giannis is kind of useless. Their skill sets overlapped and didn't combine in a way that was going to get the Bucks anywhere. I don't think that's an issue with Myles Turner. I think Myles Turner is going to come and add to the Bucks in a way that helps Giannis be greater. And I think that's their only path. I think that's their best hope, is that Giannis is by far and away the best player in the East. And with Tatum and Halliburton hurt, the rest of the conversation is Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, and the Hawks. They've done some nice things. The Magic, if you're really high on Paolo Banchero, I guess. But Giannis is the best player in any of those series, and I think the best path for the Bucks is to just support Giannis the best way that you can, and I think Turner does that in a way that Damian Lillard hadn't when he was healthy and certainly wasn't going to do when he was hurt, right? We also can't judge this move in a vacuum. We can't judge the events of the last 6 or 7 hours in a vacuum, meaning I've seen all these stories and these tweets from basketball people. It's like, this is an overpay for Myles Turner, right? This is a desperation move by the Bucks. This is a panic move by the Bucks. Yeah, it's desperate. Yeah, it's a panic. Yeah, it's an overpay because they had to do something. And the folks who should know that most of all are the people who've been saying the Bucks need to do something. And those people are now the same people who are like, well, but not that thing. Okay, but then what thing? You know what I mean? The choice wasn't Myles Turner or Steph Curry, Myles Turner or Jimmy Butler, Myles Turner or LeBron. It was Myles Turner or the same team as last year, except your second best player has an Achilles that's not connected to his foot. So again, you can't judge this move in a vacuum. In a vacuum, yeah, obviously you don't want to pay $20 million a year to a player who's not going to play. Obviously, Myles Turner probably can't be the second best player on a championship team. But are the Bucks in a better spot than they were 24 hours ago? I think so, yeah. And let's start there. Let's work from there and move forward. And we might just be in a better spot this year. The team might have a little bit more juice. You might get some breaks in ways that you have in the last couple of years. Again, you can't judge this move in a vacuum. So for everyone who's like, well, this is desperate. Duh! This is a little bit of a panic move. Obviously! They're trying to do anything they can to improve this team around Giannis. They paid a premium for it. But Dame wasn't going to play for him this year anyways. Cut him loose. Just take your... And you hold on to all your picks. So you have that 2031 first-round pick. So if the Bucks turn out to suck in 2 years, well, then you can trade Giannis anyways. You could trade Turner and get something that you probably wouldn't have been able to get for Dame. And then you still have those picks at the very end of the line when the team is going to suck anyways. So I'm very pleased with this. This is more interesting. This is more exciting. I think this is a better team than they would have had they not done this deal. And that's enough for me. That's a starting point, considering the alternatives all sucked. I'll take your calls on the other side. Some reaction before we get to Justin Garcia at 4:35. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, appreciate you listening. Exciting day of Bucks news. I probably wouldn't have talked much today about the return of Bobby Portis, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., although I think all of those players, I'm happy they're back, especially Prince and Gary Trent Jr. They're back on very reasonable deals. I like Bobby Portis returning more, that now that I know he can kind of stay in his role, he won't have to be the every night starting center because they have Myles Turner. I probably wouldn't have talked much about the Bucks today if not for this Myles Turner news that then became the news that Damian Lillard is being waived. This is juicy. This is the most excited I've been about the Bucks probably since Damian Lillard first arrived, and maybe that first game against the Sixers, because that was electric. After that, it just kind of became a malaise for me. This is new. This is a shot in the arm. So I'll take your calls for the next 10 minutes, and then we're going to speak with Justin Garcia, the Bucks Radio Network, and Locked on Bucks. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q. Happy Bucks Christmas in July. This is awesome.
This is fun.
It's like, So I'm obviously a huge Bucks backer and a big John Horst defender, and he's just by far and away the best GM we have in this state. And I think it today proves to me that the Bucks ownership is the best ownership group in the state.
Well, I got some sound to play later on in the show. I think you do need to tip your cap to ownership because they gave John Horst the all clear. Yeah, we'll spend the money for a player who's not here, and we'll trade away more future picks to dump a contract like Connaughton's. Like, yeah, I think the ownership deserves some credit because they're pretty committed to continuing to invest here.
There's reports out there that Myles Turner was leaving Indiana because they just wouldn't go over the luxury tax after being in the finals.
Why aren't more people ripping the Pacers today? I think they deserve to be rolled over the coals for this. They just had their best season in forever, and they got cheap with the player who's been there the longest.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. Like, they have an Achilles issue too, so it's a bit of a gap year, and it seemed like they were never really high on Myles Turner for whatever reason. Like, hopefully those reasons don't surface here, but for as long as there's been rumors that he was going to get traded, I've wanted him to be paired with Giannis. Like, I've called in and said over and over again, I want Giannis to be paired with a big. I'm shocked by what happened today, but at best, I was giving it 50-50 if Dame was going to be on the roster next year. I was thinking they would try and trade him for like Beal with the Suns.
Yeah.
But like, Dame also did us a solid today. He did not have to do the blend and extend.
Does he have any say in that? I suppose we could ask Justin coming up, but you might know more than me, Q. He had to agree to this?
He had to agree to it, and it had to be like, to make the numbers work, I think it had to be 5 years. Like, the Bucks offered him salary for like both years of salary that he was entitled to. I think it was like the best of both worlds, but if Jimmy Haslam's not here, this deal doesn't happen. Like, he has the bankroll to just be like, screw it. Like, we're going to just have this hole in our cap and pay some extra luxury, but whatever. And like you said, it's not our money. Like, I'm just thankful that a small market team like the Bucks has owners that are savvy enough and have deep enough pockets to invest in not just the community and the fans, but like success on the court. Like, and they did this move because we didn't want to have a gap year in Giannis's prime. Like, that was the worst part of the Giannis injury to me, and I'm just thrilled.
The Dame injury. Yeah.
I'm thankful. The Dame injury. I'm thankful that they're making it work, and the guys they're bringing back, like, it's all on basically minimum deals. Like, they count as minimum deals against the cap. They're getting a little more than that in actual dollars, but it's just cool. And who knows, like, there was a lot of people that were upset about the Chris trade, but this is all possible because of that. And
yes. And that's something, and Q, I got to cut you loose just because I got one more caller to get to. Laying it on a little thick with the ownership, like the community involvement. Yeah, they're cutting the checks, and they gave the general manager the okay to trade more picks and to do what was needed. They get all the credit in the world. And that is an interesting spin. Like, is this possible without the bankroll of Jimmy Haslam? It's a good topic. Maybe we can circle back to that in hour number 2. Obviously, we don't know, but I think most Bucks fans are hesitant to give him credit. I think there's a real point there. I like the guys who they re-signed last night, Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince at those numbers. It's great. And the form and fashion with which they signed kind of set things up for today, and I'll explain that more. I got some audio from Jim Ozarski, who was on with Bill earlier today. I'll play that for you in hour number 2. But I want to take one more call here before we get to Justin. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Steve.
Steve. What's up, Steve?
Hey, I know you got Justin on next, and I listen to Locked On Bucks all the time. It's a great podcast.
He's good.
And I guess the Bucks were kicking the tires on Ayton, and I'm so glad they didn't pick him up. Evidently, he was a bad character in Portland, too.
He missed a game because his driveway was icy once upon a time. Like, that's kind of all I need to know. Sorry.
But I know your time is briefer. I just want to say, isn't that interesting? All these so-called insiders that speculate on Giannis leaving, I didn't hear one of them speculate on this Dame deal or the Bucks making the trade with Indiana. Or did you hear anything from any of these insiders?
It was silent. Nothing.
Yeah. So what do they know? They're just making crap up to fill time. Is my opinion. And the thing I wanted to say is I wouldn't say Horst recovered from. He made the deal for Dame to begin with. I was never. It's not nothing against Dame, but I never thought he would be a good fit. And I think he listened to Giannis. I hope Giannis isn't taking the Aaron Rodgers route of trying to be a quasi GM. And I'll be real curious what the initial report from ESPN also is that Giannis wasn't real thrilled with cutting Dame. So I'm curious how this plays.
So there's a lot of different angles, and we'll get into this in hour number 2. I appreciate it, Steve. Chris Haynes reported Giannis wasn't thrilled, and I think that's a miss. I think that was poorly communicated, unless I'm misreading the situation. Because Shams reported that Turner and Giannis have been in communication, and they loved the idea of doing this. And then we got all this reporting that Dame welcomed the buyout, and he's all about this. So then what? Where is the report that Giannis isn't happy about? Where did Chris Haynes get that? Or what did he hear that then he communicated into that? That's something that we can touch on in hour number 2 as well. But we got to get to Justin on time. He's going to join us coming up next. The Bucks Radio Network, Locked On Bucks. Justin is great, and he'll help us figure out some of these details that I'm just not smart enough to cover. So that's coming up.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. I'm going to get back to taking your phone calls at 5 o'clock, and I have just mountains of audio to react to from Chris Haynes and Windhorst and Shams reporting on this, that, and the other thing, things I agree with, things that I like, things that I don't. So a lot more to dig into, angles that we haven't been able to get into in the first half hour. And I just kind of wanted to give you the nuts and bolts of the last 24 hours and my thoughts on each of these signings specifically. Obviously, the biggest, Myles Turner coming in today, and then Damian Lillard being waived and stretched. Joining us now to discuss, Justin Garcia, a high-ranking member of the Bucks organization. So, Justin, you're with the Bucks Radio Network. You do Locked on Bucks, but I'm sure you heard about these rumblings. You heard rumblings of these moves weeks ago, and you had to keep it to yourself. So, not a surprise to you, but your reaction when you saw both the signing of Turner and then the waiving of Dame earlier today.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, so I wasn't very surprised. It was just, I was stunned, to put it mildly. And, you know, I was talking about this with somebody else earlier today, and that, you know, in hindsight, maybe we should have raised an eyebrow a little bit and wondered, what does this mean? When Bobby Portis took the deal that he did, I mean, it's not like the Bucks saved a ton of money and it was a bad deal for Bobby, but it was definitely coming in less than I think Bobby hoped to make coming into the offseason. Now, part of that, too, is I've talked about it before and others have pointed it out. I just didn't know where the money was going to come from for Bobby Portis in free agency, and not just for Bobby, for a handful of these guys, with two teams having cap space and then basically half the league having the mid-level tax exception, the mid-level exception, the non-tax. But, you know, that means that only a portion of those teams are going to use the full thing on one player, that most of them are going to spread it out. So looking at that, you just think, I don't know where Bobby Portis is going to get more than $14 million this upcoming season. So there was that. And then when you saw the deal that Brook Lopez took and how early that came in free agency, I remember seeing that and talking with somebody else, with Frank Madden last night, and saying, it's a really weird deal, because I think the figure he's getting from the Clippers is right around the walkaway figure that the Bucks had to stay under the tax and fill out the rest of the roster. That it is kind of strange that it was this quickly that Brook Lopez has taken that deal with the Clippers. So I think we kind of read into it, wow, I guess he just wanted to move on. And in hindsight, it was very clearly the Bucks have something that they're working on here of, nope, we're targeting Myles Turner. We're getting Bobby Portis to take this. I would assume, communicated that with the other agents and teams of, we need this much open because this is what we're going to do. So we need your guys to take this. And it's just all come together to form a very shocking day for this team without even getting to the biggest piece. I mean, waiving and stretching Damian Lillard, as hard as this is to say, is more shocking than signing Myles Turner as a free agent as a team that did not have cap space as of 24 hours ago.
Well, and it's funny. The NBA is so convoluted, and I'm used to hearing Team XYZ doesn't have the picks, doesn't have the money. And then you check Twitter the next day and Team XYZ has done the thing that nobody previously thought they could do. So when they signed Myles Turner earlier today, I'm like, oh, like this is the balls. This is really cool. And I did not get the wheels spinning in my mind like, okay, well then what does that mean? And maybe I should have, maybe if I'm a little smarter. Is that something, did you have that thought process this morning too?
So when we saw the deal, I immediately texted one person, I'll say, and
one of the owners. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Sign and trade, huh? Like, what's part of the deal? Because, this figure, when you saw that amount, 108 million over 4 years. I mean, you like, well, okay, that's more than 14.1 million. So this is not the mid-level exception. Like, wow, this is a sign and trade. What are you giving up here? And was just told, nope. And that was it. And then it was 2 minutes later that the Damian Lillard thing comes out. And I mean, that's the interesting part to all of this, because I do think we're not to get on this tangent here, but
please,
this move kind of reinforces one thing to me, in that I'm not a fan of the CBA. I think we're aligned there, and we've talked about that before.
I don't think anybody likes it. How did this thing pass?
Well, and I was talking about that with somebody else earlier.
You don't need to go down that path
today, but just revisiting that of how did the players sign off on this? And I mean, number one, as I was told, don't overlook the power that the most powerful players have. And this CBA is good for the Giannis's and LeBron James types. Those guys are going to continue to make money. The rest of the group, not so much. It's a lot of guys taking the minimums. There was the recreational drug testing thing that was in there as well, but it's still hard to fathom so that was enough for this when you're squeezing the middle market here. But to me, this move just kind of reinforces, teams have kind of caught on. I think there were teams that were hesitant or thought maybe we can figure out how to get around this. But now it's the realization, nope, you can only have one of these contracts on your team going forward. So we got to build this team around Giannis and say, this is our max contract. Everything else is just guys that make sense, that are making maybe slightly less. The tough thing with Myles Turner is it's a pretty good value deal. I mean, you basically got, if you ask ChatGPT, get me Brooke Lopez but younger, they're going to spit out Myles Turner. It's almost a like-for-like replacement, and he's 8 years younger. But you also kind of have to view this deal as it's a 4-year deal, so a 3+1 with the player option, $22.5 million. Tack that onto Myles Turner's deal for the next 3 years. So it's basically
what you're paying Myles
$45 million or so,
plus what you're paying for Dame.
Yes.
It's not perfect. This is what's bothered me about some of the reaction online when I've seen the columns and the think pieces put out. It's like, this was a bad deal. Like in a perfect world, you would not do this, but this is not a string of moves that you can judge in a vacuum, because it's not like the Bucks had option number 2, option number 3, option number 4 that were that much better, Or maybe
it was their only card to play. If that's just what we're looking at, you're saying Myles Turner is clearly the best free agent here this summer. And he's still right in that age range where we've all kind of said, look, the goal should be Giannis is the oldest player on this team. And they're basically still there. I mean, Myles Turner hasn't turned 30 yet. Technically, Gary Harris is now that he's, I think, like 70 days older than Giannis, but you're still in that ballpark. So this was the only card to play to get there. It's still like, I think we're all still trying to come to grips with like, wow, that's a big credit card bill that just kicked down the road, and to do it for 5 years. Like, a lot of people were talking themselves into waiving and stretching Pat Connaughton. That's $3 million in dead cap room or dead cap space for 3 years, not 22.5 for 5 years. So that is something to think like, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But it was the only card they had left to play. And I mean, we all kind of said it coming into this offseason of, well, John Horst has always pulled rabbits out of his hat, and I'll never bet against him. Like, look at how we acquired Drew. Look at how we acquired Dame. I said that. I never believed something like this could happen. It was just like, well, it has happened in the past. I don't know that they really have any cards to play this time. And they do this. And you immediately see the spin shift to like, this is stupid to put that much dead cap space out there. Yeah. What does this mean for Giannis? This is just a desperate move, and I don't think it helps him that much. I don't think there's any disputing. This helps the Bucks immensely, and this makes them a better team on the floor than they were 24 hours ago. It is worth having a conversation of what it means for your cap going forward. But I will also say, I don't know that every team is going to do it, but now that the Bucks have opened up Pandora's box and knowing just how crippling this CBA can be to some teams, I don't think this is the last time we see a contract of that size waived and stretched.
I thought about this earlier today. This used to be unheard of in the NFL, and now every other team has a dead cap of, like, we used to think, oh my God, you're paying Matt Ryan how much? And then there was Russell Wilson. And that's like, so I'm with you. I'm interested to see how this will be viewed in 5 years. That won't make a difference for what the Bucs do on the court this year, but in a bigger picture conversation, I think it's worth mentioning. Justin Garcia is here, Bucs Radio Network. Let's talk about Myles Turner, the player. I have not thought much of him for a long time. Thought he was kind of soft defensively. He gives you like 2-ish towards 2.5 blocks a game over his career, but as Russillo would tell you, who blocked a lot of shots? Hassan Whiteside, and he sucked ass on defense. So, like, of course, I was really impressed with him in this playoff run. And the fact that they beat the Bucs, I'm sure, played a part in that. You go to the finals, you're going to be impressive. I see him a little bit differently after this playoff run. Is that fair? Unfair? What do you think of the?
You seem differently, like in a good way. Are you saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I was very impressed with him.
In a way that I haven't been in the past, I guess. And maybe I just haven't been watching.
I would agree with that. I mean, I always kind of viewed it as like Myles Turner. Who cared? Like
a better version of John Collins. Like, he's always available. Nice tools. Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's give him a little more respect.
Much better. I mean more as like the player that's always talked about as available, and every team's like, oh, that could be interesting, and then
I mean, and the irony, and I forget who it was that I saw put it out there too, of like, man, the Bucs have the full Pacers experience here, where we kept hearing these rumors and flirting with DeAndre Ayton, which in itself is another one to get to. Thinking you're going to get DeAndre Ayton and then just eventually having to settle for Myles Turner, just as the Pacers did a couple of years ago. But look, we said he replicates a lot of what Brook Lopez does. He does that 8 years younger. He is a very good rim protector. He's in the 90th percentile for his block rate. Not a great rebounder. So if that was your gripe with Brook Lopez, I mean, maybe keep the ink there, because you're going to be recycling a lot of those takes. But to me, what stands out the most is, and I'm curious to see this paired with Kevin Porter Jr. and even for Giannis, with Giannis for that matter, which I think it's safe to assume Giannis is your point guard. He's a 3-level scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't necessarily the case with Brook Lopez. I mean, part of that was by design with how much the Bucs offense shifted him to the perimeter because of Giannis. But Myles Turner is a very good 3-level scorer. He can finish at the rim. I think his best shot is probably his mid-range shot. And then he was a 40% three-point shooter last year. He's very strong in the playoffs up until that series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But a lot of players individually have looked bad against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So he just allows you, for all this talk of, well, the Bucs are going to have to play differently this year and losing Brook Lopez, and what does that mean for your defense? Well, you can basically play the same way now. And you can play that drop defense. You can play Myles Turner. He's a little more fleet of foot than Brook Lopez. I'm not going to suggest he's Jericho Sims. I mean, I remember talking about going into the offseason when there's a lot of people that can probably take victory laps, but it's one of those you backed into being correct of, why don't the Bucs just target Myles Turner? Well, because they have no route to get him. We didn't think they'd waive Damian Lillard to create that cap space, and they got him. But the one thing to me was, look, if you want to play differently, that's not Myles Turner. I mean, maybe he's a little quicker than Brook Lopez, but he's not the quickest big man out there. He's very similar to what Brook gives you. So I do think that's a way that Giannis wants to play, though, and it means Giannis doesn't have to play center. And to me, it makes the Bobby Portis contract even better, that you're not leaning on him to be your 5 and say we need a lot more from Bobby. He can be that bench production once again, and just allows you to do a lot of the same things you did before. But I think you feel a lot better, and I don't mean that as a knock against Damian Lillard, but you feel a lot better about your perimeter defense around everything else. We got the rim protector Myles Turner, we have the ultimate help defender in Giannis, and we feel pretty good on the perimeter defensively to say, if it's Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr., I would assume are going to be 2 of the starters. Whoever the third one is, if it's everyone's favorite in Taurean Prince, if it's Kyle Kuzma, if you start AJ Green, it's still on paper a much stronger defensive unit than I think you were battling with for most of last year.
Myles Turner is slower, I guess. He also showed me in the playoffs that he can play with a unit that's moving fast.
Yes.
Even if he's not the motor and he's not driving, like he can fit in that environment if the Bucks want to do a little bit more of that. And I think that might be, I think we're about to enter the era of cutting in the NBA. Maybe we can talk about that at a different time. Everyone wants to cut now. Lastly, 2 minutes tops on this. I am confused as to why the Bucks are getting second guessed more than the Pacers today. I read this as the Pacers getting cheap after one of their best seasons in franchise history.
Absolutely. And I was talking with one of the indie reporters earlier today and saying, like, explain this to me, because on the surface, I'm just as stunned that the Bucks waived and stretched Dame as I am the Pacers let him walk. Like, we got to wait to see what the base level or the base year compensation is, but I would assume it's going to be like 23, 24 million for Turner in year one. He was making 19 or 20 million last year. And we saw the reports that right before Tyrese Haliburton went down in game 7, they were willing to go up to 30 million and be in the tax. So to do this is what I can't quite wrap my head around. I know they don't want to be in the tax, and that's fine if you're not going to compete or feel like you're going to compete to the level you did a year prior. But there's other mechanisms to get out of the tax. I mean, the Bucks traded Pat Connaughton and cleared up some cap space. You could have traded Obi Toppin. You could have traded TJ McConnell. You could have traded Benedict Mathurin and said, we're not going to compete for a championship this year anyway, so let's just get some assets. To me, it's almost malpractice to let that asset leave for nothing because you don't want to pay the tax when you can figure it out later and still get under the tax.
Maintain the asset or retain the asset, right? That's what we're always saying. Like, you don't want to lose the asset. You can always trade the asset later, which I think is a sneaky, like, undercurrent of what the Bucks now, the position they're in. If this blows in a year, the Myles Turner trade piece is a more attractive one than the Dame alongside with Giannis.
Yes.
Obviously, you don't want it to get there, but you're not backing yourself into a horrible position other than the money on your cap, which will be irrelevant if they decide to rebuild anyway.
So I won't say who told me this, but I was told the initial offer to Myles Turner was 4 years, 92 million
from the Pacers.
Which is what, 16 million less than the Bucks. So $4 million annually less on that math. And I have still TBD. They were doing some digging on this, but my question was, okay, like, how does this happen? Yeah. That if you're the Pacers, I understand if that's your offer and you say, well, who else can pay you, Myles? Nobody has money. Like, this is what we're going with. But the moment the Bucks come forward with that offer, you match the offer, especially with the notion of Myles Turner wanted to be there. That was his preference. So I had asked, like, was it just, if you're going to lowball me, I'm out of here. I'm going to go shop the offer. I'm going to go find something else. And that's the one thing they have not gotten clarification on that I'm very anxiously awaiting to hear. Was this just that's what you think my value is? I'm going. Or was there a shop into the offer and the Pacers still said, no, we're not paying the tax?
Seriously, 30 seconds. That's all the time I have. Was the Haynes report about Giannis's frustration just miscommunicated? I don't
make anything of it. Yeah, I mean, we basically got the same thing when Drew was traded. If Giannis is disappointed to lose Drew, but he's happy to play with Dame. I mean, I'm sure he feels bad for Dame to go out like this. But we also heard the conflicting. Giannis was helping recruit Myles Turner, and if you're Giannis,
Dame is thrilled.
And if you're Giannis, you have to question. Okay, how are we getting this guy? What are the outlets when I know we don't have money? So I don't think he was blindsided by this.
Okay. I'm still going to play the sound in the next hour and react to it strongly because it'll be good radio, but I agree with you that it's mostly nothing. Justin Garcia, keep working those phones. We will chat again soon if we have reason to. Thank you.
See you later.
Justin Garcia, Bucks Radio Network. He's plugged in, folks. He hears things. He's calling around. We'll wrap up the hour and come back at 5 o'clock. Your calls, lots of sound. We're just going to react to the madness that the Bucks have been through the last 24 hours here. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show presented by In on the River in Trempealeau. And if you want to plan your getaway to the western portion of the state, and you know me, I can't recommend it enough, give them a call, 608-534-7784, or go to inontheriverwi.com because I just read the phone number. I'm looking at it. I already forgot it. So go online or check out their Facebook page, and you can kind of see what the deal is, see some pictures. And if you're watching the simulcast, you can see it's right across from the river. You see the bluffs, the marina's right there if you want to bring a boat to fish or to cruise around. Sullivan Supper Club is just a couple of steps up the road, the Trempealeau Hotel. You can get food, live music, downtown Trempealeau right there. And Perot State Park, minutes away. Trempealeau Mountain Golf, El Morro Vineyard, lots to do. And if you want to go into La Crosse for the afternoon and do whatever, do the bluffs, go down by the river, get dinner downtown, and then stay somewhere a little bit more quaint. Get out of the hustle and bustle of the big city. In on the River is the place to be. So go to inontheriverwi.com, and you get a weekend booked for the second half of the summer now that we're almost eclipsing the 4th of July. Very, very, very good interview from Justin. That's what I was hoping to get out of it. And I have some audio from Jim Ozarski that I'll play for you here to begin the second hour as I begin to take more of your phone calls as well. And he did a really good job outlining it on Bill's show today. And I got about a 60-second cut that I'll play for you. When he said you could kind of start to see the tea leaves of what was happening when Bobby Portis signed the deal that he did. And then when Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince signed the deals that they sign, it's like, okay, there's not enough money going out. It's clear that the Bucks' only plan wasn't retain all these guys. It was clear that they had bigger things in mind. And I saw Jim posting about that last night, basically saying they're working on something here. They have to be, otherwise these numbers don't make sense. So I'll kind of lay that groundwork for you, or let Jim's commentary from earlier lay that groundwork for you. We can also have some fun with commentary from Brian Windhorst and Chris Haynes and the like on ESPN and the big networks today. We'll have some fun with that. And more of your phone calls on the other side of Zach's update, 608-321-1670.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Bucks made a bevy of moves today that sent shockwaves around the NBA. Those moves, the signing of Indiana free agent center Myles Turner. It's a 4-year deal worth $107 million. The other move, the waiving of all-NBA guard Damian Lillard. They still owed him $113 million, but going to be able to spread that out over 5 years. He is expected to miss most, if not all, of the upcoming season after tearing his Achilles in the playoffs. As for Turner, he's coming off a run to Game 7 of the NBA Finals with Indiana and was expected to re-sign with them. Instead, he brings his nearly 16 points and 6.5 rebounds and 39% three-point shooting to a Bucks team that had a need at center following Brook Lopez's departure for the Clippers. But the Bucks weren't satisfied with that. To clear more room for the signing, they sent Pat Connaughton and 2 second-round picks to Charlotte for forward Vasily Micic. He is likely to be bought out and return to Europe. Meanwhile, the team signed Orlando free agent wing Gary Harris and re-signed center Jericho Sims today as well. Both of those moves came after Milwaukee had agreed to new deals to keep Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and Taurean Prince yesterday, along with Sunday's re-signing of Bobby Portis.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Get insurance from a company who knows Wisconsin and cares about your community. You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer, but did you know they also offer competitive home and auto rates? Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more about products and discounts.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Wisconsin basketball program has its final piece of its roster. It was announced this afternoon that forward Elijah Gray had transferred in. He spent his first 2 seasons at Fordham and last year at Temple, where he averaged 9 points and 3.8 rebounds per game. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. And the Brewers got rained out in New York tonight. They'll play a doubleheader tomorrow. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil. Print.
I mean, a stunner today in the NBA. They have reached a 4-year, $107 million agreement with Indiana Pacers center Myles Turner. He was a free agent. They are picking him up in free agency. And in order to do so, they are waiving and stretching the $113 million on Damian Lillard's contract. This opportunity came out of nowhere for the Bucks. Myles Turner is the longest tenured Pacer, 10 years there. He wanted to remain in Indy, from my understanding. The Pacers made several offers that were below market value, from what I understand. And so John Horst, as well as Turner's agent, Austin Brown, they worked over the last 24 hours to figure out, is there a way, a creative way in a very scarce marketplace in right now, salary cap around the league? Is there a way to bring Myles Turner to Milwaukee? And for the 3rd time in Giannis Antetokounmpo's Milwaukee tenure, back in 2020, John Horst goes out and gets Jrue Holiday. 2023, Damian Lillard. This one was more serious this summer of 2025 because Giannis Antetokounmpo essentially was never as close as he's been to potentially leaving Milwaukee, and they go out and get a franchise caliber starting center. Damian Lillard welcomed the release today, this change of scenery. He gets all $113 million now owed to him. He also is going to be able to, for the first time in his career, pick his next destination.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2, I got some audio. I love days like this where there's a big news story. The NBA media has a real tendency to go on Sports Center, to go on NBA TV or to go on the podcast and just spray out takes. If there's a big story in the NFL, you'll get some commentary on NFL Live and maybe on Sports Center, but for the most part, the NFL media doesn't mobilize quite like the people on NBA media. It's a very social media driven league, right? A lot of the consumption and a lot of the attention garnered by the league, certainly in the offseason, is on the internet. So the content must be created. It must get out there. So I have some comments from Windhorst, from Chris Haynes, from Zach Lowe, and the like. Tomorrow, maybe we'll have to really hit it with a little Bill Simmons. I don't know. I see some concerns over on the live stream. I'm watching you guys over there. And I understand that the Bucks and the NBA, probably not your favorite topic. The Brewers were off yesterday. We haven't had anything take place with the Packers in weeks. And Nick commented and said, I'll give Grant today, but it's going to get drug out for 3 weeks, sadly. You guys think we're going to talk about Myles Turner for 3 weeks? What, am I supposed to go home tonight and grind tape and come back and say, actually, on the Spain pick and roll. Like, we're not going to drag this out for 3 weeks, but it is by far the biggest story of the day. It's not like there's lots of other stories today. The Brewers just got rained out tonight, so we'll have to wait until tomorrow to even watch them play again. So this is what we're discussing. I'd love to take more of your calls on the topic. 608-321-1670. If you are interested, a couple of texts before we get into some audio. Rockin' Rick says, put down the coffee and pop a gummy, Grant. Chillax. I don't think I've been especially over the top tonight. Interesting observation from Rockin' Rick. Bobby Momney says, pick and roll doesn't work because Giannis can't actually make the pick. So Giannis has shown in his career, most notably in their title run in 2021, that he can do it. I don't know that he's the best screen setter in the world. I also think that when you are Nikola Jokic or Giannis Antetokounmpo or Shea or Tatum, who I reluctantly put in that group, but you look around the league like, okay, who else? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think those guys are screen setters, typically. I think Giannis can do it. I think in the right settings and in the right moments, he will. I think of this pick and roll with Myles Turner more as Myles Turner as the screen setter. And I thought Justin did a great job of talking about how is he 3-level scorer. So if Giannis has the ball at the top of the key, and the absence now of Dame allows Giannis, and he wasn't going to play anyway, but now Giannis can really distribute and handle the ball at the top. Not in every possession, but I want him to do it quite a bit. He's good at it. It's not like they have a true point guard on the roster, so he can do it. Turner can come set a screen for him. Giannis can create some action off of that. Turner is now a threat to shoot a three, to score from the mid-range, which is what he's best at. Justin was talking about that. Or he can drive to the hoop and do that thing too. He can play with his back to the basket, and he's got a half-decent postgame. So it's not about Giannis setting a screen for Myles Turner, although I wish Giannis would be a little bit more of a willing screener, because we saw in that title run, that was kind of the defining feature of their offense, was Giannis setting screens for Chris Middleton, and the action that stemmed from that. And his usage as a screen setter went up and up and up with every series in the postseason. I remember Zach Lowe writing about it. Coyote Mike says, Grant, as a casual Bucks fan, this even makes me excited for Milwaukee. Like they signed Turner. From day one, the games I was able to watch, it appeared Lillard was uncomfortable and not well suited for the team. Glad he is gone. By the way, Brewers rained out tonight. Yes, they are. I feel bad for Dame that he popped his Achilles. He's doing okay. For all of the pearl clutching on the internet today, Dame fought back from a blood clot and put his body on the line, and this is how the Bucks treat him. Oh, this is how they treat him, by giving him all his money and allowing him to pick his next destination and rehab wherever he wants. He'll be okay. These guys make mountains of money, and that's not just to play basketball games. That's sometimes to get traded, sometimes to be waived, sometimes when the coach asks you to do something you don't want to do. That's $60, $70 million a year that the top guys are making. That's not just to play 3 basketball games a week, because God knows if that's what it was about, then they wouldn't be paid that much, because most of them don't do that. It's all the other stuff too. This is part of that. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
All right, I only got about 15 seconds of reception left. I sent that text about 4:15. You were arguing with yourself. Well, that's the reason I sent it.
Well, I'm here, but who else am I going to argue with, Rockin' Rick?
Anyway, that's it was from that long ago. So you were pretty hyped for the first 15-minute segment. So.
Well, what I don't get, and I'll play some audio to kind of further my point here. So here, Rockin' Rick, I won't argue with myself. I'll argue with a pre-recorded voice of someone else who's also not in the room. Of course, I'm going to argue with myself. I solo host the show. I can't. There's no one else in here. What do you want me to do? Brian Windhorst on ESPN this afternoon. I clipped this because it just kind of drives me up a wall a little bit. Here's Brian Windhorst, ESPN, talking about the idea of the Bucks mortgaging their future with this move.
All right, I'm going to take a deep breath here. This is mortgaging your mortgage to buy a sports car. I guess if you get the girl, which is Giannis in this case, maybe it's worth it.
So I'm going to pause it. I know it's an analogy, so I shouldn't get bogged down in it. The Bucks, I don't think they're mortgaging their future. They don't have a future without Giannis. And this is what I don't understand. This is where I think a lot of national commentary on the Bucks misses the mark. There seems to be this idea with the Shams and the Windhorsts and the like, that there's some smooth, convenient off-ramp for an NBA team in Milwaukee following the tenure of a player like Giannis, who's going to go down as by far and away the best player in franchise history. If Kareem would have played there longer, it would be more of a discussion. But like, I think we can all agree that Giannis is the top dog. To what degree, I suppose, put that to the side. Who cares? so many people talk about the Bucks and their decision making. Like at any moment, the Bucks could just push a button and take a nice smooth off ramp into the next phase of Bucks basketball with this young core of players that will all turn out to be great. And they'll be back in the playoffs and competing for championships and nationally relevant in no time. I'm here to tell you that reality does not exist. When Giannis decides to leave Milwaukee or when he retires, the Bucks will blow. And they will probably blow for a bit. And they will do some wandering in the wilderness. And picking away and handling the tiny little details around contracts of people like Myles Turner is not going to change that. Like, this Titanic is sinking. The only question is when, or I guess the only questions are when and what you're going to do between now and then. So when Brian Windhorst says, well, they're mortgaging their future is Giannis. There is no future after Giannis. And that's what bothers me is all of these national talkers mostly are like, they talk about the Bucks like there's this smooth exit ramp post Giannis where things are just, we'll just get the next Giannis. We'll just draft a bunch of guys and they'll be great. That's not going to happen. So stop worrying about it. Just drive the car until it falls apart. Like, the car is going to turn out to be a 2004 Honda Element that is only worth scrap. That's where this is ending up. And obsessing over putting a new this in and the alternator and the tire. Like, yeah, you want to get the oil change and you want to do smart things so the car can keep going until then, but it's going to be scrapped at some point. The only question is when. So I don't understand why people get their back up about the Bucks trying to like not have it be now. I just don't get it. But let's continue a little more from Brian Windhorst, and then we'll get back to your calls.
I just want to put into context here. The largest buyout in the history of the NBA is $31 million. And if I gave you 600 guesses, you wouldn't get it. And the only reason I know is because, as Bontemps said, we were researching this with Bobby Marks the other day. It's Bison Dele in 2000. Yeah, and something that hasn't happened for 25 years is a reason for that. And so that was $31 million. This is $113 million that the Bucks are now going to put on their cap over the next 5 years. For the next 5 years, Damian Lillard will appear on the Milwaukee Bucks cap sheet for $23 million, give or take, based on my, back of the envelope math here. Okay. And I've got executives texting me saying that Myles Turner isn't even dramatically better than Brook Lopez.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Like, we all watched Brook Lopez last year. Plus, he's 8 years younger. Like, I just don't think that's true.
Now, we could debate about that.
Don't really want to.
Myles Turner is a excellent center who's a basket defender. He is not an all-star. So they are going to be paying Myles Turner $26 million, and they are going to be paying Dame Lillard $23 million for the foreseeable future. So this is going to basically become a $50 million salary slot so that they can hope that Giannis doesn't demand a trade.
So Dame's got a busted Achilles, and it wasn't working. So were they just supposed to just spend the 20 and change on Dame and just wait for the team to suck worse? Like, I always wonder, what are we going for here? What are we driving at? What are we asking of the Bucks? Because all I've heard for the last couple of weeks is they got to do something. And the Bucks did something that no one thought was possible. And now it's like, well, geez, mortgage your future much? You a-holes, it's what you've been asking the Bucks to do for weeks. They finally did it, and now you act confused? I don't get it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
We love NBA talk. Grant, I'm all in on this today.
Hello, Vagabond John. Hey, the NBA is not my favorite thing to talk about. You got to understand, you guys. Like, I'm not going to take flack for discussing the NBA today. This is interesting. This is an unprecedented buyout, a player that we didn't think the Bucks could get. Like, I'm not going to take it from you guys today. I'm sorry.
And if you don't think this is interesting, just think about it in other sports terms. Because I like the point that Q brought up, because it was a topic on the morning show last week.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the worst GM after draft night? And Horace was getting a lot of legs. And I still think, honestly, I think we've got some pretty good GMs compared to the rest of the league. So, like, who's the worst in Wisconsin is a weird bar to set, because we kind of kick ass in
I like
sports.
that.
But when you're thinking about this, look, I think there's two camps you can be in, and I 100% agree with you that if you're in the gray area, pick a side of the fence. I'm kind of in the camp that I'm really sick of seeing star MVP cornerstone pieces leave our teams and not getting a future plan in place. Like that's what I'm terrified of here. That's the camp that I'm in, right? So I'm ready. Like I said, maybe trade Giannis last year, right?
Okay,
so
well, look, if you're in the trade
Giannis
Giannis camp, that, if you think the Bucks should just blow it up and get max value for him now, okay, I don't agree with you, but at least you're taking a side. You can't do what Windhorse is doing. Well, like the Bucks need to do something, and then you get mad when they do something, which I know is not what you're saying. I think that's a reasonable take. It's not the one that I hold, but you're right. Your demand that people need to pick one side or the other, I think, is true. Absolutely.
And look, what I'm getting worried about is we just saw two teams play in the finals, right? Each of them had undrafted or players drafted in the second round playing major minutes, right? Like Lou Dort, undrafted guy, played major minutes. So the idea
not as many as that comment would make it. There were a couple, but it's people talk about these teams like
big role player, right? Like you can find these guys that are good in late rounds. So
they didn't draft Hartenstein, but yes, correct. It is possible.
So there's guys, I mean, Nebhard, right? That's a second round pick.
That's one.
Or at least second
yes.
round, sure. But you do find guys is the moral of the story, right? I mean, obviously you could use Jokic, but that's, I think, an extreme example that is once in a lifetime. Moral of the story, I don't like the other moves that are going on. I don't really understand, the point guard situation. I understand the guest mentioned Giannis is just going to be the point guard. I understand Kevin Porter Jr., some are buying stock, maybe like you buying Aaron Ashby stock. It could pop. But, looking forward, is this team going to win a championship or compete for a championship, or are we going for bites of the apple? So if your team bites of the apple, I think you got to be really excited about what they've done in the last 24 hours. If your team championship, I think we need to maximize value for our used car before its timing belt blows, and I think you got to kind of move on. So I agree with you, take there. Hey, real quick before I let you go.
Yeah.
Badgers added their final piece to their roster, transfer out of Temple. Nothing more than a stretch four body for the bench. And you need bench guys that have some size. So if Badger fans are out there like, oh, who's this guy? 6 points a game at Temple. That's not much. It's just a 6'8" body that's 225 pounds that you can put in there and make 75% of his free throws. So nothing too crazy there. Greg Gard cooking in the portal per usual. And we carry on.
I appreciate that, Vagabond John. Good call. The idea of maximizing the asset while you have it. What Vagabond John is basically saying is the Bucks should create an off-ramp now and trade everything and get the max return. That's a fine way to go about this. It's not the belief that I feel, because if you blow up the team now, your goal then becomes getting your next Giannis. And you have Giannis right now. You know what I mean? So while I think it's a fine opinion to hold, it's not the one that I hold, but it's a much better opinion than doing what, people like Brian Windhorst are doing. And I'm just playing you some clips. I think Windy's good, but we need something to, beat on. I need some sort of stalking horse for the show to kind of get my takes off. And I'm using Windhorst commentary. You can't on Monday say the Bucks need to do something. Giannis is watching, and then they do something. And then you say, oh, a little desperate. Duh. Yeah. They also got a really nice player who's probably the best available free agent. Does it make them the runaway favorite in the East? No. But if there was ever, to Vagabond John's point, if there was ever a time where bites at the apple might just work in the NBA, it's the year where Tatum is hurt and the Celtics are cutting salary. The Pacers, like Halliburton's hurt, they're cutting salary. The East is there. And the Bucks, at this moment in time, have the best player in the East. And if they could fill out this roster and have year two with a majority of this group, like, all right, I can play that. And honestly, you know what? As a Bucks fan, I'm just more excited to watch this than I would have been to watch the same team as last year. And then just let's check in on Dame's rehab like he's Brandon Woodruff, or probably more realistically like Garrett Mitchell, who we learned today's season is over. Yeah, that 8 to 10 week rehab, that was 15 weeks at least. So the Brewers said that their hope is for him to be ready in spring training 2026, which is a bummer for Garrett Mitchell, but basically inconsequential for the Brewers this year. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll come back. We'll have a little bit more fun with some audio. Continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
This is a John Horst MO, in terms of moving in silence, right? Like the Lillard trade, the Holiday trade, and now this pair of transactions with the Lillard wave and Turner. The tip-off came late last night. The Bucks were doing something or about to do something big when they re-signed Gary Trent Jr. for effectively the minimum raise. He got 120% raise off his minimum salary last year. We thought for sure the Bucks were going to have to dip into that tax exception they had and kind of break that up between multiple players. They were ready to do that. And then suddenly, somewhere along the line, and I'm guessing this was ownership, gave John Horst the green light to stretch Damian Lillard's money out over 5 seasons. Damian Lillard is going to be on the Bucks books. And I think once that green light was given, and then Gary agreed, and this is a negotiation, Gary agreed to this deal, the windows of possibilities opened up really wide in getting Myles Turner and now Gary Harris. That's just sort of shrewd negotiating on John Horst's part, ownership signing off on this, and then Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., Taurean Prince on a minimum, these guys working together toward a common goal of getting the Bucks back in the mix in the Eastern Conference.
Good stuff from Jim Ozarski earlier on Bill's show. He's had a really good beat on this stuff for the last 24 hours. Just right, kind of the sequencing of how this all came together. Well, Bobby didn't sign for as much as we thought. And then as Justin said last hour, Brook Lopez really didn't sign for all that much. Like it seems like a number the Bucks maybe could have done. And then Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr. signing for what equates to the veteran minimum. It's like, what else do they got? What else they got cooking up? Because there's not as much money going down some of these avenues as a lot of folks expected. And I got some more from Jim Ozarski. I got some more fun with Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst and Shams and anytime there's a big NBA story, we get good audio, and I love that as a radio host and producer. I'm also executive producer of the show. The show, by the way, presented by In on the River, inontheriverwi.com, so you can make your reservations for your Western Wisconsin giveaway. And if you have any questions, by the way, if you're like, hey, that sounds interesting, I want to know more, well, you can give them a call. Also, message my Facebook page. I've been there a ton. So the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on Facebook. I check the messages. I don't always respond as much as I should. But if you have any questions about that and you're like, okay, well, I want to know a little bit more, I can help you out too. Just shoot me a message. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing, sir?
Ridge Runner, I'm excellent. How about you?
Not too bad. So I'm not a diehard Milwaukee Bucks fan. I mean, I'm loving Giannis being there and being relevant and winning the championship. And just speaking about Windhorst and what he said and your frustration, the funny part is that the national media, we always have this sense that they just don't care about the flyover states. They don't care about Milwaukee. And all of their saber rattling, everything they're saying is key to they want Giannis to be somewhere else. But they have to somehow walk this line of, well, what could Milwaukee do to keep him? They have to actually say that, they think, but deep down, arrogantly, they don't think Milwaukee should keep him, and they want Milwaukee to get rid of them. So when Milwaukee actually does something that will lead to him staying, which I never thought he was leaving anyways, the frustration is obvious that they're scrambling to come up with the most minutiae thing. Well, they're mortgaging their future. What team isn't at this point?
Yeah.
They're moving chips. They're spending money that they don't have. They're doing the luxury tax thing. That's what every team is doing. Milwaukee is trying to win a championship with Giannis, and they're working with what they have, which isn't much. And
I think they're doing more with what they have than anyone's expected. Nobody thought they'd be able to swing Dame. Nobody had this on their, on their radar. So you're saying they're doing what they can with what they have. I think they're doing that and then some.
Sure. Yeah. And so when the national media sees this, their frustration is coming through with, well, we asked, they have to do something creative. Oh, shoot, they just did something creative. But Giannis isn't leaving then. But we want Giannis to leave, but they can't say that out loud. So now they're saying everything else they can. But it's obvious. They want to see him in a big market team where all the advertising deals and all the money flows and they can talk to more people. They don't care about the population of Wisconsin that are diehard Milwaukee Bucks fans or casual fans.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they want. And it's rather comical and frustrating to have to listen to that when you really just want them to be neutral.
So, yeah. So I think you said a lot of good things, Ridge Runner. This isn't something that I love talking about because I don't love playing the role of the Wisconsin sports guy who's always fighting the battle against the national media. I think that's small time. I think that makes us look lame. We're always like, ESPN just wants him out of here. They can't stand to see him playing in Wisconsin. It's like, I don't know that the national media, which is a phrase that I don't like, because again, it makes us sound small time. It makes, when I complain about the national media, it makes me feel like small. I don't like this topic, because the more we complain about the Windhorsts and the Shams of the world, like always talking about how they just want Giannis out of here. They just want to, like, it makes us sound like losers. So I don't like to do it. I don't think they really care one way or another. Who's even they, right? This is why this discussion is hard for me. The national media, let's just say the big apparatus, big NBA. I don't think they care one way or another if Giannis is here or if he goes. I think it's a good topic. I think it makes for good content. It makes for good breakout clips that get engagement. It makes for good conversation on First Take or on NBA Today or on the pregame and the postgame shows. It's a good, natural topic. Will he or won't he? Is Giannis going to ask out? Are the Bucks going to do things to show that, that Giannis can win here? Like, it's a natural topic. If I was producing a television show that ran with the biggest NBA stories of the day, I would scoop from that ice cream bucket too. Like, I would pick fruit off that tree. I think it's probably that simple. Sometimes it seems a little bit more pointed. Sometimes Not all the time. Sometimes I think it's just content. It's just show business. Sometimes I wonder why that same concept isn't applied to Jokic in Denver. We'll see if Anthony Edwards ever faces that in Minnesota. He's a lot earlier in his career, and he's just not as good. He's a young, exciting, rising star. Giannis and Jokic are probably the first and second best players in basketball. And there's a big difference between those guys and someone who's 8th or 10th or wherever Anthony Edwards is. And if you think he's higher than 8th, if you think he's 6th, that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point is there's a big difference between the best or second best player in basketball, MVP, finals MVP, defensive player of the year, puts a franchise on their shoulder to win a title. There's a big difference in that guy. And the way I see it, there's only 2 of those guys in the NBA right now. And Tatum or Edwards or Shea. And I just don't think will Shea one out of Oklahoma City moves the needle. I don't think anybody cares. Will Halliburton one out of Indy? Will Anthony Edwards one out of Minnesota? I don't think people care about that. Because Anthony Edwards and Halliburton and Tatum and Shea, while they're excellent players, they're not quite on the level. And they're not lightning rods. Giannis being Greek and coming over and making his home in Milwaukee and winning a title here and them, there's a obvious sequence. They got Bledsoe, they got Holiday, they got Dame, now they got Turner. Like there's fruit on this tree if I'm producing a television show or a radio show to pick. So I get it. It does sometimes seem a little pointed and at times personal. And I did a podcast earlier today with our friend Bart Winkler, who's on the show, and Paul Immig, who you might know. He used to cover the Packers for Fox, and he used to do a lot of hits. He would go on Bill's show. Remember Better Call Paul? Remember that? Gem, a radio's Joe Zanzola joint. So you might know Paul if you've listened to Wisconsin Sports Radio for a while, but he doesn't work in sports anymore. But he told us on this podcast earlier today, you know what drives reporters crazy is when they can't get information and something happens and it blindsides them. You know what I mean? Like it drives people crazy when all of a sudden Damian Lillard is a Buck and nobody had it. Or Myles Turner is a Buck and nobody had it. And you heard in that Jim Ozarski clip, like, this is how Horst operates. Nobody hears anything. And Paul was insistent recording this podcast earlier today. Like, that's a factor here. Teams and general managers and front offices that don't play the game don't often get the treatment of the front offices that do. I think maybe that's part of it. But for the most part, when it comes to the national media, which is a phrase that I hate, but I still have yet to come up with a better substitute. When the national media force feeds us these will he, won't he, Giannis topics, Bucks fans, I think it's mostly just because it's good TV. It's a good segment. I don't think it's that they have some anti-Milwaukee bias. I just think it's good TV. And if Giannis was in whatever, fill in the blank city, I think it would exist, probably on a smaller level. But if he was in Indy or Detroit or Cleveland, it would exist. It existed with LeBron in Cleveland for a long time. And at that point, LeBron was on that level. Like he was one of the 2 or 3 guys in the league who puts a franchise on his back. And right now, there are probably only 2 of those guys. I don't always understand why maybe Jokic isn't talked about and discussed the same way. I also think the Nuggets have some more resources and some more wiggle room. We'll see where they are in 2 or 3 years. If they reach the end of their rope and the team is decayed around Jokic, maybe he will get that treatment. I don't know. I think it's just compelling TV. I really think that's all it is. I don't think there's some malice behind it. I just think it's about putting together a segment that allows analysts to fire their takes off, puts out a good clip that people engage with, and I mostly think that's it. We'll take a 5-minute break here. We'll come back, continue. I have some fun audio that we can play with next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Myles Turner was widely regarded as the best free agent on the market. And the Bucks not only get that, but they get almost an identical Brook Lopez replacement. He is 8 years younger. He is another guy that stretches the floor, hits threes. He shot 40% from three last year. He's terrific in the mid-range, and he's a really good rim protector. So when you say, how are we going to figure out how this works alongside Giannis with our big, you just got Brook Lopez 8 years younger, and now you can keep Bobby Portis in that role he was before of the guy that's basically your scorer.
That's Justin Garcia earlier today on, I think it was on Willie and Tausch. So ESPN Wisconsin, ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee. I don't mind Willie and Tausch. It's a show that I'll sometimes flip on when I'm driving in. I spin the dial. I listened to a lot of Ebo this morning, and I tell you what, folks, if you're like, God, I wish Grant wasn't talking so much about the NBA, then listen to Ebo's show. The last couple of days have just been, I don't, you know what? I don't even know how to describe it in a good way. We got to hear about Kate's trials and tribulations at Morgan Wallen this weekend, her attempt to meet him that came up short, which I actually felt bad for her. She did not make the cut of people from our station who got to meet Morgan Wallen. I have no interest in, I don't know. There's very few, I'm with Ebo, he talked about this. There's very few celebrities that I'd be like, I would like to shake their hand and get a picture. There are probably a couple. But I was bummed. If you caught the 9:00 hour of Over the Line, poor Kate just wanted a picture with Morgan Wallen. Couldn't make it happen. Or you could listen to this show, and I'm just going to bang you over the head with, Myles Turner trade talk. On the topic of the national media being so obsessed with the Bucks and Giannis, this says, Wendy wants to report a Giannis-Wemby pairing or a Lakers trade. A non-All-Star Pacers center signal that, a non-All-Star Pacers center signing that destroys any hope of a Giannis trade sells less papers than a blockbuster. Yeah, again, I think this comes down to selling papers, folks. I know so many people have it in their mind that ESPN hates Milwaukee. And look, they haven't done a lot to dispel that notion when Stephen A. Smith is like, oh, I have to work the NBA Finals in Milwaukee. Sorry, man. I don't know. It's July. It's pretty nice out, actually. Weird to just be so overtly pissed about visiting an NBA market that's home to Giannis and this beautiful new arena. So whatever. I understand there have certainly been comments from people in the media about, oh, screw Milwaukee. Okay, well, whatever. They don't live here. Who cares? But I don't think on the level, is that what's the expression? On level or on the level? There's a couple new expressions I'm trying to work into my vernacular. One, I heard from Greg Cosell at the Super Bowl that I really liked. As a matter of course, I really like that. And I think, is it on level or on the level? I don't think big picture ESPN has some big axe to grind with Giannis in Milwaukee. I don't think they sit in boardrooms, folks. And how are we going to, like, it's not like cable news where it's like, how are we going to push all these people to, like, they're not trying to mobilize their base to get Giannis out of Milwaukee. I think they're what's going to sell newspapers or what's going to make for a good segment. And you know what makes for a good segment? Is Giannis going to ask for a trade? Even if they don't think that he is. Like, it's a topic. It's interesting. It's better than, well, with Michael Porter Jr. leaving Denver, how will the whatever be affected? I don't know. I don't want to watch that. I'm a sports fan. What do you think of the millions of people around who just they just want to throw something on during the day when they're working at home and they want to see the headlines, maybe catch a couple comments here and there. Like, that's what it's for. And Giannis segments are really good at that. I think it's about just what makes a good television segment. I got a little audio here. Let's do, you heard that cut from Justin Garcia. Let's do Zach Lowe and Waz on the events, not just of acquiring Myles Turner, but also trading Dame away.
Heartbreaker for Dame, although maybe he ends up in a spot where it's better for him in a year. I don't think
it's a heartbreaker at all.
No, he gets his
money.
Bang.
Agreed.
He gets paid and gets to pick his next shot, choose his next destination.
You just don't, once you get hit with the wave and stretch buyout label, it just changes your life a little bit, I think. It's not a heartbreaker for Myles Turner, but, we will talk about the Pacers and why the Pacers may have done this coming off a finals run, coming off a run where you're one game from the title, and you knew looming was the luxury tax. This dude's a Pacer for life. He meshes great with Halliburton, and I think the bet they're making is like, any stretchy five or any five of any kind is going to mesh super well with Halliburton. It just doesn't feel great to get that close to the title and then do this.
Which, by the way, I think is a great take from Zach Lowe. Like, the Pacers thinking, well, any long five that can shoot and run is going to work here. The problem is it's not exactly that easy to find any old center that can run and shoot. It's actually it might be challenging to find that guy. And also, you just made the finals. You lost in game 7, and you're cutting loose your longest tenured player who's still in his prime because you don't want to pay the tax. Like, that's, even if you think you can make it work with another player, like, I don't know that that's good.
At first glance, the Bucks, are they contenders? They certainly skew big, like Kuzma, Portis, Giannis, Turner. are 4 of their top whatever players, regardless of what you think of the Kyle Kuzma experience in Milwaukee, which was obviously dreadful. I would like to see them get, and I suspect they will get, another person who can like dribble the ball and play guard. I don't know who that's going to be. At first blush, they're still a perimeter player away from me being like, okay, now that's a team that could beat like the Cavs and then the Knicks in back-to-back playoff series.
Okay, so that last part, let's talk about that. Could the Bucks, in theory, in this iteration, beat other elite teams in the East? Again, this is what I've been saying for the last 2 years. They're not going to be. First of all, before I even go there, it's the week of the 4th of July. There's a lot that's going to happen. There's going to be trades. The Knicks don't even have a coach right now. The Cavs are trading away Isaac Okoro to get Lonzo Ball. Darius Garland's going to be hurt. There's a lot that, just with those two teams, the Knicks and the Cavs, there's a lot that needs to be decided there. And Karl Anthony Towns was kind of dragged around in the mud after they lost, and his name was thrown around in trade conversations, which probably doesn't feel good for him, probably isn't good for the locker room. Okay, so just those two teams. Yeah, if Myles Turner and Giannis really click and some role players make their threes, like, yeah, I think they can compete with those teams. Will they be favored? Probably not. And this is what I've said the last couple of years. The Bucks were never going to be favored against the Knicks or the Celtics or the best teams. But could it be close enough for the best player in the series, Giannis, to do his thing with a supporting cast that makes sense? That's the goal, right? And also, well, Orlando and Atlanta. Okay, well, those teams could end up being really good. I guess would like to see it first. This is classic Bill Simmons. Can I see it? Can I see it for a month? Can I see it for 2 months? Before you tell me that the Atlanta Hawks have figured it out and are going to be good, I would just like to see it for a month or two. And same with Orlando. Maybe I'm a boob for thinking Desmond Bane is not the cure to all that ails them. Maybe I just am not an appreciator of Desmond Bane's game. That doesn't seem like the player to take a team from a first-round struggler all the way to the finals. What the hell do I know? I didn't watch a lot of the Grizzlies, and I'm far from an expert on Desmond Bane, so I don't know. But I tell you what, the idea, well, I mean, they're still not a contender. Okay, but what's a contender in the East? Like, which teams are guaranteed to be at the top? Well, you would say the Knicks and the Cavs. I have more questions about the Cavs after this last postseason than ever before, and the Knicks don't have a coach yet. The East is so wide open. So, no, are the Bucks the underwhelming or overwhelming favorites to run away with the thing? No, but that was never on the board. People are acting like the Bucks eschewed the opportunity to get like Nikola Jokic to pair with Giannis, and instead they decided on Myles Turner. That's not what happened here. A little bit more audio here. This is Brian Windhorst. This is my favorite cut of the day. So if we had a sponsors like Grant's favorite cut of the day, this would be the one.
If I'm an Indiana Pacer right now, I'm absolutely disgusted. I am sick to my stomach. If I'm Tyrese Halliburton, I am breaking things right now. If I'm Rick Carlisle, I'm furious at just what's happened because they were unwilling to spend a little bit of luxury tax money to hold this team in place for a year when Halliburton came back, to go to a team that they hate. They hate the Bucks. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a while to digest this. And if Giannis tweets later today a big smiling emoji and indicates that he is happy as a clam, the Bucks can declare a win. But I'm not sure the balance of power was changed in the Eastern Conference, even though this has been a stunning turn of events.
So here we're moving the goalposts a little bit, Brian. Well, if Giannis decides to stay, then I guess the Bucks can claim victory. But like, are they winning a title? 1 foot in front of the other, Brian. You know what I mean? Like, it's the end of that drives me a little nuts.
A big smiling emoji and indicates that he is happy as a clam. The Bucks can declare a win, but I'm not sure the balance of power was changed in the Eastern Conference, even though this has been a stunning turn of events.
It has been, and I like the first part of that cut. Let's not get bogged down at the end. I don't know why the Pacers are skating by without much criticism today. And granted, I've been watching ESPN all day. I'll probably listen to some podcasts on the drive home, and I'll listen to a couple on the way in tomorrow. So I'll try to consume and get the general idea of what folks are saying. But the Pacers just had their best season in my lifetime. And I know like Jermaine O'Neal and like they've had some other years. I don't have the perfect historical precedent for like the best season in 3.5 decades. I don't have that Bill Simmons thing for you. But this is by far their best season since Paul George was there, and it seems like it's sustainable. It's not one player that went dumbo mode, although Halliburton, made a lot of big shots. They've built something really nice. And they came within an inch of winning the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history, and you let the longest tenured guy walk because you don't want to pay the tax. Not to save yourself against the second apron to maintain flexibility. You just didn't want to pay the tax at all. And that's just so small time. So I hope that when I consume some content on the way home and I listen more on the way in tomorrow and I get an idea, I hope Indiana wears this a little bit because I think they deserve it. I don't know why the Bucks are getting ripped over this. They're doing what they can. They're making their team better. Oh, but the money to Dame. Oh, okay. So did you want him to continue to pay Dame while he's hurt and then Dame's just going to suck? What's the difference? Stretch it out over a couple of years. 5 years they'll be paying him. Okay, yeah, but in 5 years, chances are Giannis will probably be gone. They'll be rebuilding anyways. At which point that money won't matter. It'll just be fodder while the Bucks wander in the wilderness, which is unavoidable. No matter what everyone seems intent on saying, they're mortgaging their future. Their future is now, old man. Their future is now. Mortgaging your future would indicate, if you're betting your mortgage, that you could lose your house one day. I'm telling you, the Bucks are going to lose their house. They will be homeless. It will happen. It's just a matter of when. So live it up in the home. Take out a HELOC. Take out a second mortgage. Take out a second mortgage on the HELOC. I don't know how that stuff works. I don't know. Home equity line of credit, that's just a HELOC. I'm just repeating things. Last couple minutes, I want to talk about the legacy that Brook Lopez leaves behind and Pat Connaughton, because I think they will be, in the here and now, quite underrated. I don't know why people are like, yay, Brook is gone. Yay, Pat's gone. And then they're like, oh, not Dame. Are you kidding me? Brook and Pat should be lauded on levels much higher than Dame. Although I do feel bad for Dame for getting hurt. He's getting paid. This is working out okay for him. We'll wrap up with a little legacy talk next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, this is all about keeping Giannis Antetokounmpo in a place where he's going to sign an extension next summer. Every time he postures this way, and he has postured this way in some form or fashion since 2017, the year before any contract extension comes, he lets it be known in some way, hey guys, maybe, if you're not committed to winning, if whatever it may be, and the Bucks have always answered the bell there. And this is another example. Now, I think multiple things can be true. I think as someone who respects Dame as a teammate, knowing, what Dame tried to do to get this team to win a playoff game, right? The blood clot. Giannis could say, maybe, I don't know. He's in Greece right now. He's having a charity event. So I don't know his line of thought. I think he could be like, oh man, wow. The Bucks just like the guy who's hurt. Sure. He's upset about like his guy. You know what I mean? Like, I think all of that can be true as a human. I don't, in terms of like a broader, let's paint broad strokes and just say, the Bucks are doing all these things to make themselves a legitimate conference contender, and suddenly Giannis is not happy. That doesn't jive with me.
It's a little bit more from Jim Owczarski, Milwaukee Journal-Sun. He was on with Bill earlier today. It's 10 minutes that you should absolutely go listen to. Jim's been really plugged in for the last 24 hours or so. I mean, he's plugged in general, but he's followed this in his reporting that he's shared on Blue Sky and Discord, and he's not on Twitter, but has been really there every step of the way. So go listen to that. So the Bucks said goodbye to Pat Connaughton today. They said goodbye to Brook Lopez yesterday or the day before. I think the best comparison that I can think of for Brook Lopez's legacy, I think he's the Gilbert Brown to Giannis and Chris's Brett Favre and Reggie White. Like, that's how I think he should be remembered. Not a number retired, not a statue, player Hall of Fame or team Hall of Fame for sure. Some sort of, I don't know what the Bucks do, like Walk of Honor or Wall of Honor, whatever's the next best thing behind jersey number retirement and player Hall of Fame. Like, Brook absolutely deserves that. I think Pat Connaughton, while not as important as Brook, not as important as Giannis, Chris, Drew, he hit some big threes in that postseason, man. Like, they don't win the title without him. And I don't know. I just think Packers comps are easy because the Packers have won championships. So I'm trying to think of, maybe Drew Holiday's best comp is like Tremont Williams in 2010. I'm trying to think of Pat Connaughton. Like, maybe no, probably not Mason Crosby. I'm trying to think of a Pat Connaughton comp from a Packers Super Bowl team. And I don't know. I think Brook is very much Gilbert Brown. And I think Drew Holiday could be maybe Tremont Williams in 2010 or the 97 Super Bowl 31. It's slipping my mind. Desmond Howard. You know what I mean? Like Giannis, Favre, Reggie White, Chris, or swap them. Honestly, those are the two. It doesn't really matter which order you put them in. I think Giannis and Chris are on slightly, Giannis is on a tier slightly above Chris, and I actually don't know between Favre and Reggie. I think the defense mostly won them that game. But I think Pat and Brook should be players who are remembered very fondly. And I see a lot of Bucks fans. The internet, with that fan base, at least tends to skew a little bit younger. There's a little disrespect on the way out the door. Like, I don't know, man. Brook helped win you a title. Pat helped win you a title. So I think those are players that should come back for the reunions. Team Hall of Fame. Number retirement probably stops with Giannis and Chris. I hope both. I think it should be both. But whatever's next should be Brook and Pat. And ultimately Drew, too. But we can have that conversation at a different time. Tomorrow, Dom Catronio. I'm jacked. Have an awesome night. I'll talk